always thought vampires were just myths, stories made up to scare people. But that was before I met one. I don't know how I survived that night. My friends and I were hanging out on a Saturday night, bored and looking for something exciting to do. That's when Eric brought it up, the abandoned house on the edge of town. You know, people say it's haunted, right? He said, grinning. Or worse, there's a vampire living there. We all laughed it off. A vampire? Really? But the house did have a reputation. Dark, decaying, and surrounded by a dead garden. It was the kind of place parents warned their kids to avoid. Some said they'd seen shadowy figures in the windows at night, while others claimed anyone who entered never came out. Of course, we didn't believe any of it. What's the worst that could happen? I said, trying to sound brave. Let's go. My heart was pounding, even as the words left my mouth, but I didn't want to back out. We were teenagers, full of arrogance and stupidity, and we thought nothing could touch us. It was nearly midnight when we pulled up to the house. The moon was full, casting an eerie glow over the crumbling building. The air was colder than it should have been for summer, and an unsettling silence hung over the place. No crickets, no rustling leaves, just silence. Eric was the first to step out of the car, flashlight in hand. "Come on, scaredy cats," he teased. The rest of us followed. As we approached the front door, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The door was unlocked, creaking open with a sound that sent shivers down my spine. Inside, the house was worse than I imagined. Dusty furniture, broken windows, and the faint smell of decay. Our footsteps echoed unnaturally, as if the house itself were alive and listening. "Let's split up," Eric suggested, his voice a little too eager. "We'll cover more ground that way." None of us wanted to admit how scared we were, so we nodded and went in different directions. I headed upstairs, the wooden steps groaning under my weight. The second floor was pitch black, but my flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing peeling wallpaper and a long hallway lined with doors. As I moved forward, I felt the temperature drop, each step colder than the last. My breath misted in front of me, and I realized I was trembling. That's when I heard it, a faint screaming at me to turn back. But curiosity got the better of me, and I slowly moved toward the noise, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The door at the end of the hall was slightly ajar. Pushing it open, I stepped inside a room that felt impossibly cold. The scratching was louder now, coming from a large wooden wardrobe in the corner. My throat tightened as I approached it, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. "Eric?" I whispered, hoping this was some kind of sick joke. But there was no response. Summoning every ounce of courage, I reached out and yanked the wardrobe door open. It was empty. I let out a shaky laugh, relief flooding through me. But then I noticed something. Scratches on the inside of the wardrobe door, as if someone had been clawing to get out. My stomach churned as I stepped back. And that's when I felt it. A breath. Cold, damp, and too close. I spun around, my flashlight beam landing on a figure standing in the corner of the room. It was tall and thin, with skin so pale it seemed to glow in the darkness. Its eyes were black pits, staring straight at me, and its mouth curled into a smile that revealed sharp, blood-stained teeth. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. All I could do was stare as it stepped closer, its movements impossibly smooth, like it was gliding instead of walking. "You shouldn't have come here," it said, its voice low and velvety, dripping with menace. Finally, my legs responded, and I stumbled backward, tripping over a broken chair. The flashlight fell from my hand, clattering to the floor and plunging the room into darkness. I scrambled to my feet and ran, my heart racing as I barreled down the hallway. Behind me, I could hear it following, its footsteps unnaturally light. It wasn't running. It didn't need to. It knew I couldn't escape. I burst into the stairwell, nearly tripping as I descended. "Eric, Sarah, run!" I screamed, hoping they could hear me. But when I reached the first floor, the house was silent. "Guys?" I called, my voice trembling. No response. Panic clawed at me as I searched the rooms, but they were empty. Eric, Sarah, and the others were gone. It was like they'd vanished into thin air. The front door loomed ahead, and I bolted toward it, yanking it open with all my strength. The cold night air hit my face, and I ran to the car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the keys out of my pocket. As I fumbled with the ignition, I glanced back at the house. It was dark and still, but I swore I saw something move in one of the windows, a pale face, watching me. I sped away, tears streaming down my face, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. What had I seen? Where were my friends? And most importantly, how had I survived when they hadn't? The police didn't believe me. They searched the house, but found no sign of Eric or the others. As I felt their eyes following me, I searched the area again, my heart beating faster, and my heart beating faster. And I stood up so fast I skipped over our grocery bins, just an empty wardrobe with scratches on the inside. It's been 3 years since that night, and I still have nightmares. Sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat, convinced I can hear that velvety voice whispering in my ear, "You shouldn't have come here." I don't know what that thing was, but I know one thing for sure. Vampires are real, and if you ever hear about an abandoned house on the edge of town, stay far, far away.